Morning, everyone. Hi, this is James Meyer with Costerisan. Welcome to our webinar on Are You Considering a Switch to the Cloud? The subtitle we got here is Cloud Options for Dynamics GP Users. I know we have a couple users on who are not currently using Dynamics GP for their accounting software. Most of this webinar will still apply, so hopefully you'll still stay and join us. The first part, though, is focused on, the first few minutes is on Dynamics GP. Our focus today, or our agenda, is we're going to start out and talk just briefly about why moving your accounting to the cloud is more important than ever, or makes more sense than ever. And then we'll talk about the alternatives. One alternative being to put GP in the cloud. The other is to move to new software, and we'll talk about some of the top software options and what the pros and cons of those are. And then, like I say, at the end, we'll answer any questions that people might have. So let's get started. Start with why cloud, and we believe there's three key reasons or drivers right now for the cloud. We've been talking about the cloud for a long time, and people have been gradually making that move, but today is a whole new norm. With the COVID-19 issue that's been going on, everybody's working remote right now. And our feeling is that once this is over, people are still going to be working remote. A lot of people are still going to work remote because they've seen how effective that is and how easy it is to work remote. So you need to have software that supports that. So that's one reason to move to the cloud, so you can have access from anywhere in the place. The other thing is there's a lot of people that have hardware, internal hardware, if you're running software in-house, that's older, or you've got software that's older, and you really don't want to be in the IT business anymore. A lot of people are outsourcing their IT to managed service providers, but you might as well go a step further and get your software out in the cloud. And I see that trend. That trend is just going to get bigger and bigger, and really today there's no reason to be running software in-house anymore. There's just so many advantages of being in the cloud. And then the last one is just the user experience, and so if you move to newer cloud-based software, the interface is better, it's a better experience for your users, and better user satisfaction. So those are the key things for going to the cloud. Now, why maybe would you not move to the cloud? Because we do hear this a lot from our clients of reasons why they don't want to go to the cloud. And some of these may apply to you. Your current system's working great. Why would you change? You're looking at the cost of moving to the cloud or the cost of hosting, and you're saying, man, that's a lot of money. Why do I want to spend that? You don't have very good internet, or your internet's not very high speed, and you're concerned about that. Maybe you just spent money upgrading your in-house servers, and you're saying, why would I replace those? I just upgraded them, and then maybe you got a bunch of third-party software customizations, and you're worried about what happens when you go to the cloud. Now, those are all good reasons, but the bottom line is, unless you can say yes to 3 or more of these, you still probably should look at going to the cloud. I mean, if you've got 3 or more of these, maybe it makes sense to still stay in-house. But otherwise, you need to be thinking, if not today, sometime in the next year or two, you need to move to the cloud, because there's just a lot of advantages in doing that. Okay, so if you do move to the cloud, what are the alternatives? First one, like I say, is we can take, if you're using Dynamics GP, you can do that in the cloud. So we'll talk about that briefly. And then the other one is to migrate to a true software as a service, SaaS, mid-market ERP solution. And the two that we want to focus on today, we're going to focus on today, are Business Central, Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, and Sage Intacct. And we'll also talk about what some of the other options are and why we think that Business Central and Intacct are the best options. Okay. But you're probably asking yourself, well, what is a true SaaS? What do I mean when I say true SaaS? And because isn't, if I put GP in the cloud, isn't that cloud? Is that, what's the difference between a true SaaS and taking an existing application and just having it hosted and putting it in the cloud? And the biggest difference there is really it's the idea. It's more of a technical concept of single tenant versus multi-tenant. And Dynamics GP or QuickBooks or any other product like that those are what they call single tenant applications, because everybody has their own environments. So even if you have it hosted by somebody at a data center, they still have a unique environment for every customer in that data center. Every customer has their own copy of their own server, their own database, and their own configuration, right? So it's very customer specific. Customers are not on the same software version, and customers are still responsible for all of their own upgrades and updates in that environment. So you get the advantage of having it hosted and being able to access it through the cloud, but you don't have some of the other advantages. The advantage of a true SaaS product is it's what they call multi-tenant. Multi-tenant means I've got one application that everybody's on. Everybody's sharing that hardware, everybody's sharing that application. And the benefits of that are huge, because now my software, what it allows you to do is all your software is current. You don't have to worry about any of the IT infrastructure, but the biggest advantages here are the fact that everybody's on the same version of the software, everybody's on the most current version all the time. You never have to worry about updates or upgrades. And that's just a significant benefit, as you'll see as we talk further about kind of the pros and cons of these different options. So keeping in mind that idea of single tenant versus multi-tenant, let's start out and talk about Dynamics GP in the cloud. There's kind of three options for you to do Dynamics GP in the cloud. One is to take advantage of the Dynamics GP web client. Very few of our GP clients right now use the web client. It's probably only a handful out of about 250 firms. But the web client is actually a really great feature that's available now at GP. And what the advantage of the web client is allows you to access through a browser, and you don't have to worry so much about, like what most of our clients do when they're hosted is they access through what's called remote desktop. That means I have to have remote desktop configured on my computer to access. Whereas if I'm accessing through the browser, I have a little more flexibility on what devices I can use to access GP, which gives me more freedom. Right, so that's a plus. So you can do that even if you're running GP in-house in your own servers. You can still deploy the browser, and we can help you do that if you're interested. But the most popular choice for our clients, if they want to go to the cloud, is to move it to have it hosted by somebody. And we have our own branded Maynard Cloud environment we can host for you, and we can again do that through the remote desktop or web client, or we can provide you with both options for you. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to talk to you about that. The third option is to do it yourself. You could put your GP up on Microsoft Azure's cloud environment, or maybe you could use your own hosting service, but essentially you'd be responsible for that. The advantage of the Maynard Cloud hosting is not only can we manage the hardware, the infrastructure side of it, and that side of it, but we also know GP, so we can make sure we can easily troubleshoot if there's any issues. Whereas if you put it in Azure and you're trying to call Azure for support, they're not going to know GP, and or maybe some other hosting provider. So just something to think about. If you are interested in any of these options, or particularly the first two options, we can talk about in a minute here how to get help with that. Before we do that, though, just some pros and cons of this. The pros for GP are, if you just put GP in the cloud, I mean, obviously it's proven. You know it works, you're using it now. It's obviously going to be the least disruptive. You don't have to learn anything new because everything's the same. Even if you go to the web client works just like the standard user interface. So the look and feel is exactly the same. And you're not moving to new software, so you're not going to lose any of your history. You have access to everything. So those are really big positives. But the downside of it is you're still responsible for making sure that upgrades get done and updates. We can help you with that, but they still need to get done. You're not always on the most current software. And because of those upgrades in different versions, Microsoft, the ability to provide new innovation is kind of low. It's very limited. And particularly since GP is such a proven product with a lot of functionality, Microsoft's just not putting a lot into that right now. They're putting their focus more on their new cloud product, Business Central, and where you're going to see a lot of the innovation. And then you still have the same interface, so nothing's changing in terms of that interface and that ability to access from other devices, as you'll see when we get into the demos. So you've got a great system that works, it's positive, but there's also downsides. So that's the pros and cons of GP in the cloud. If you do want to take GP to the cloud and you haven't already done that, you can contact Kate Watts, our client service manager. And again, we're going to share this information with you afterwards if you'd like more detail, if you want to follow up, but this is Kate's contact info. All right, so that was GP. Let's talk now about Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, or as we call it, it's essentially known as Business Central today. And this is Microsoft's next generation mid-market cloud ERP solution. So this is where Microsoft is really focused today, and they've been doing a lot of really exciting things with it. It's built on top of an existing product that Microsoft's had for years called Dynamics NAV, which is a mid-market international solution, kind of like Dynamics GP, but it's more international, so it handles different languages, different currencies, etc. But they took NAV and NAV and they rewrote it for the cloud to make it a true cloud product, a true SaaS product. So it is a multi-tenant SaaS product that so you have the advantages of that. It is also part of Microsoft's 365 suite of applications. So Microsoft has built this common data service around all of their 365 suite, including their CRM, their ERP, which is now Business Central, and then all of their Office 365 apps. So that's a big plus. It's really exciting when we see that and what they're doing there. Doesn't have its own payroll, so there's a third-party payroll for those of you using Microsoft Dynamics GP's payroll system. You would have to switch to a new payroll. And then just one other thing on it. Business Central has basically two, I call it two flavors. There's the essential version, which is all the core functionality for financials, sales order processing, purchase order processing, inventory, etc. And then they have the premium version, which has everything in the essential version, plus it has manufacturing and field service. So that is Business Central. What are the pros and cons of Business Central? The pros are that, number one, it is a true SaaS, so it's always current, right? You've got automatic upgrades. Now, there's a little bit of caveat in there. I've got a couple of asterisks on that, because if you have some extensions or customizations, there's a couple steps that have to be done when those upgrades are loaded to make sure everything still works properly. But for all intents and purposes, you don't have to worry about the upgrades and updates. It's automatic. It is a modern user interface. It is designed for the cloud. It's got very proven functionality, though, that you can still take advantage of, just like GP. It's got seamless integration with Office 365 and all the apps in 365. And then the best part of all, I think, is the fact it has a really low annual subscription fee. Microsoft is being very, very competitive, and especially for the GP users, they've made it, as you'll see a little later here, they've made it very cost effective to make the move if you're interested in doing that. Another advantage Microsoft's done is they've made it available that I can get all my sub-ledger history. A lot of times when you move to a new software package, you can convert all your GL history, but you don't get the payables history and the purchasing history and the sales history and all of that detail. And Microsoft has come up with a conversion program where they will essentially created some extensions where you can pull all that history out of GP and we can put it into Business Central, so you do have access to it in the system, which is really great. It's a real plus. Okay, what are the cons of Business Central? Well, the first con is I don't know if it's a con in the respect that any true SaaS application, because it's a shared environment and everybody's sharing everything, they can't give you direct access to the database. So if you're used to having direct access to your SQL Server database, you can't do that anymore. You have to access it through the API or the application programming interface, which is good and bad. It's good because I still have access. I just have to do it through the API. The bad part is I need to have that extra process that I have to do, and I have to have somewhere to access that API, and that's something we can help you with if you need that. The financial report writer is not the strongest in Business Central. It's not as strong as Management Reporter. So you may need a third-party report writer depending on your financial reporting needs. And then it is a new software product, so I need to learn new software. Okay, so a lot of benefits, but there are also a few cons in making the move. All right, I want to show you a little demo of the 365 because we'll show you demos about 365 and Intacct. But before we go into the demo, just wanted to show you this slide. I really like this slide because it shows you, this is when I talk about the modern interface, the advantages of a product that was written for the cloud with a modern interface. And in this case, in Business Central, you can see, regardless of what the device is, I have the same look and feel and the same user experience. So I can run it from any device, anywhere, anytime, any place, and I'm going to have that same experience. And you've got that same thing with Sage Intacct or any other true SaaS product, and that's a real, that's a real benefit. So with that in mind, keeping that in mind, let's go and let's do a Business Central demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over, see if I can switch over to Business Central, and here we are. So I am in Business Central right here. And I am in, basically I'm accessing this through a Chrome browser, a Google Chrome browser, and I'm coming into Business Central, and I'm into a demo company called Fabricam. Okay. Across here, I've got menus, so if you want to go in and you can click on any of these, and you can see all the functionality. There's a lot of functionality out here, and what you're seeing actually is just one role. I'm logged in as a business manager. But there's lots of roles. If I come over here into settings and go to my settings, you can see in Business Central, it has a lot of different roles. And you can set up and give people access to different roles depending upon their job. And then their interface is going to look a little different. You can also see here, this is multi-company. So I can have multiple companies that I can access. So Business Central is, and that's a nice thing about Business Central. I have an unlimited number of companies, just like I can with GP, with no extra cost, right? So I've got up here the menus. I can also have shortcuts that I can access, which we can come back to in a second. But as you scroll down here, you can see here, Microsoft tries to make it their concept in putting together this interface, and they did a lot of research on it, is to try to make information very visual and easy for people to see. So they provide some insights based upon your data. So they've noted, this is kind of like artificial intelligence, AI. It's looking at the system and it says, okay, I can see here that your largest invoice was $14,250. All right. If you scroll through here, it's got some other stuff. Here's my best-selling item. Here's my top customer. So it's providing insight based upon the data that's in the system. You come down here and it's got some different activities. I can see here that I've got a bunch of purchase invoices or vendor invoices that are overdue. So it's red because they're overdue here. I've got some sales invoices that are also overdue, but this one's still showing green because my threshold was 100,000. And I said, I don't really want to see it. I don't want to be concerned about it unless it's over 100,000. So you can put different parameters on these things if you want to. If I want to drill into any of these, you can drill down and see more. So if I want to see what those invoices are, I can go in and I can look at the actual individual invoices and drill into those. And you can see these are all red because they're all overdue. Again, they try to make it very visual for you. We also have queues out here. So I can see queues. I can see how many invoices I've got, how many purchase invoices or purchase orders. Do I have any other things going on out here? There's videos to help you learn the software. There's graphs and insights that you can set up. Here's a simple trial balance. Here's my favorite accounts. If I want to drill into any of these, I can drill in and just hover over them. I can see what's there. I can drill down. I can see the detail behind them. I have access to all my Power BI reports from here. So you've got it's a great interface that you can go through and work with. The other thing, if I go in, I look at my vendors, for example, here, I click on vendors. Again, they try to make it visual. So I can actually, if you want, you can have pictures or pictures of their logos of my different vendors. But on any one of these vendors, if I click on it, over here on the right, I've got a detailed pane, which will show, whoops, I didn't mean to actually click into it. If I highlight it, over on the right, it's got a detailed pane with key statistics. I can see the balance. I can see what's overdue. I can see what my total payments are, et cetera, over time. If you don't want to see that, you could get rid of it if you want to and get rid of that, or I can bring it back. You also have the ability to change this look. So this is what they call a tile view. If I want, I can go to a list view. And now I've got a list view, and now if I hide this to the right, I can have different information out here. And I can change this view. I can tailor this. It's a little bit like Smart List, but it's built right into the screens, where I can tell it what fields I want to see across here. I can filter any of these. I can sort on them. I want to send them out to Excel or Word. I can do that. I can even have the ability to edit them in Excel if you give people the rights to do that. So I could open this in Excel just like a Smart List, or I could go in and say edit. If I say edit, I could go, let's say I wanted to update the 1099 information for all of my vendors at once. I could send the entire list out to Excel, update the 1099, and then import it back in, and I've got everything updated. So pretty cool options, pretty cool, tied in, this gets into that Office 365 integration that's out there, etc. So, and then right from this vendor list, if you want, you can do things. I can go in and I could create an invoice. I could create a credit memo. I can look at different information related to these vendors. So very easy to navigate, very easy to work with, very powerful interface, user interface, and a lot of functionality behind it. Okay, so that's a kind of an overview of Business Central. One other thing I want to show you though, because I talked about the Office 365 before we jump over to Sage Intacct. What I want to show you is, again, this is seamlessly tied into Office 365. So I'm running this. So right now I've got, here's my Office 365 with all of my Word, Excel, etc. Well, I also have access then to Power BI and the Power Platform, like the workflow and the Power Apps and different things that Microsoft provides. And if you're not familiar with those, give us a call, because you should be. They're awesome tools. But I want to show you something here. Back on Business Central, if I go in and I look at my posted sales invoices, I just want to show you something here for a second. Here's a bunch of invoices that are sitting out here for 4/13/2020. I've got a couple for 4/10, and you can see these vendors: Alpha, Wasserman, Life Fitness, etc. Okay, I want to show you what we did. Just how powerful this is. Here's Power BI. I just clicked on my tab. So from Microsoft Office, I open Power BI. And in Power BI, we created this daily report that's looking at that. And I've got a slicer on it, so a time slicer. So if I look at April 10th, these are those two transactions that you saw over there in Business Central for Nelson. Remember, if I go back over to Business Central, I've got two transactions out here for 4/10 for Nelson, for 2924-1730. I go back to Power BI, here they are right here. If I go to the 13th, I can see all of my transactions for that day, for the 13th, with those vendors. But I also can see, okay, how am I doing actual versus my goals, month to date and daily? Okay, here's my breakdown of sales. I got it broken down between tooling and parts. Here's my total sales for the day. Here's my sales by type. If I only want to look at my parts sales, I can just click on this and everything redraws, and I only look at my parts sales. So this is Power BI. This is where you can take advantage of that Microsoft technology to really take your ERP software, your data, and now make it more useful for you. And so I wanted to give you a little flavor for that and what you can do in the power of working in that Microsoft environment. Okay, with that, let's go back to our presentation. Last thing on Business Central, talked about pricing. I just want to emphasize this. Standard price for just the Essentials license is $70 a user a month. If you're a current GP user or SL user, you can get it for $42 a month. Or if you're a nonprofit, you can get it for $28 a month. That is huge. If you had a 5-user system at $42 a month, that's $210 a user, or $210 a month. And that's less than 1 user for Sage Intacct. It's a huge value. So anybody interested, just let us know. All right, let's talk a bit about Sage Intacct, because these are both great solutions and they have different fits for different needs, and depends on what you're looking for, right? So Sage Intacct is, again, a true multi-tenant SaaS application written for the cloud. Okay, this one was written from the ground up. Business Central was an existing app that Microsoft converted. This one was written from the ground up, so it has some things that Microsoft doesn't have. Okay, that's an advantage. One of them is the interface. The interface is just tremendous in Sage Intacct. They get the highest user customer satisfaction ratings of any ERP system on the market, period, according to independent survey G2, and also according to Trust Radius. And a lot of that has to do with the interface and the fact that the technology behind it. So it's also the only ERP solution that's endorsed by the AICPA, American Institute of CPAs, because of its strong accounting controls and the fact that it's such a easy to use from an accounting standpoint. It was written for financial people. Okay. It has a multi-entity shared database architecture. What that means basically is it's optimized for multi-entity, multi-location organizations. So if you're in that situation, there's some benefits that fall in, that are a result of that. And then it has really powerful financial reporting. I mentioned that Business Central does not have a strong financial report writer. So you probably have to use some kind of third-party reporting tool like Power BI or Jet Reports. Intacct has the best report writer in the business. I've never seen, we've looked at a lot of everything out there. I've never seen a system that has a better financial report writer. And it also has really strong dashboards built right into it. So that's a plus. Like Business Central, though, there's no payroll. You need to get a third party. And that's intentional, because both Microsoft and Sage, their concept is they want to be best of class. And they're going to have the best of class financial accounting or ERP solution. But they're not worried about being best of class payroll. There's lots of companies out there that all they do is payroll or HR. And so they're saying, why should we duplicate that and try to do that? Let's just focus on what we're good on, and then let's integrate and tie into these other solutions that are out there. Okay, so what are the pros of switching to Sage Intacct? In their case, you are always current, always updates, always upgrade, 100% seamless, no asterisks on this one. In this one, you're always, your updates are just automatic. Once a quarter, they update it. You come in the next day and it's there. Because it's cloud, they've got really good innovation. And that's true for Microsoft also. They've got a really modern interface that I talked about, easy to use. Best-in-class financial reporting I mentioned. And the other thing is in the subscription that you pay for in Intacct, it includes Tier 1 technical support. On Microsoft, as you know, with GP, you pay for support if you need it. In Sage Intacct, it's included. So your support is included in your subscription fee. Okay. What are the cons? Again, nothing's perfect. Just like with Business Central, you don't have direct access to the database, so you got access to the API. It does have a relatively high annual subscription fee, much higher than Business Central. You do have new software you need to learn, and in the case of Intacct, your payables history, your sales history, your purchase history is not typically going to convert. We could convert it, but it's very expensive, and typically you're not going to want to do that because it's not cost effective. So you are going to lose that if you move to Intacct. So you got lots of pluses, but you've got a few minuses, just like we talked about. All right. I do have a case study just to talk about briefly on Intacct, because we have had some GP clients move to Intacct. We have not had any GP clients yet move to Business Central that we can talk about yet. We will probably have some soon. But on the Intacct side, I want to talk about one, Wood County Hospital. So Wood County Hospital, they were on an older version of GP. They had multiple entities. Their servers needed to be upgraded. and they really wanted to get more real-time reporting and get away from doing upgrades in that. So they were a good candidate to move to the cloud and move to Intacct. So they made that decision, and then according to the controller at Wood County, he said, it's been a huge benefit for them. I mean, they now can handle all their multiple entities a lot easier because of the multi-entity architecture of Intacct. They can allocate costs across those entities automatically. They can drill down and view any of them as needed. They've got their interface is more user-friendly, particularly for their new users. So they found that that's a real benefit. The real-time access to data through the dashboards, et cetera, is a plus. And then another benefit they found is moving to a new software. It's kind of like when you move to a new house. They gave them the opportunity to clean things up and streamline their processing, clean their data up and streamline their processing. So that was kind of an extra benefit that it wasn't specific to Intacct, but it's a benefit of moving and making the move to another software solution that you will probably realize if you do make that move, whether it's Business Central or Intacct. Okay, let's do an Intacct demo now. Let's go in and look at Intacct. I'm going to go over and see if I can come into Intacct. So this is the interface for Intacct, and actually I want to start over here. I've got a couple different demo companies open on Intacct. This one here is a nonprofit. So we have a nonprofit demo company set up, and I've got some KPIs, key performance indicators, or performance metrics, as Intacct calls them, set up here so I can see that my operating revenue is up. That's positive, but my expenditures are also up. So that's a little negative. Not happy with that. And my G&A expenses in particular are up, so I got a thumbs down on that. So I can quickly see kind of some status. As I scroll down here, you see on the dash, so this is also a dashboard. This is a dashboard that we've got to set up. So I'm logged in as Carla Grace, the finance director, and this is her dashboard that she's got. So on Intacct, one of the neat things about Intacct, I talked about the powerful financial reporting, is you can create all these reports, but any report that you have, you can put on your dashboard, and you can drill down on any of them, which is a real plus. So think about this. I can access this same dashboard from my phone and have access to all this information and be able to drill down right from my phone if I wanted to do that, all right? But you can see as I scroll down, I've got my revenue, my statement of activities, and et cetera, financial position. Again, this is a nonprofit, right? Otherwise it'd be P&L and balance sheet. I can see my vendors, I can see my donors, so you have lots of information you can put on the dashboard. These are all configurable by user, right? But the real powerful thing is the ability to filter these dashboards real time. So I can have different grants, and I could filter this on any grant. I could have different lines of business, and I could filter on the lines of business, or I could have different programs that are out there. So if I wanted to go in and just look at my active programs, or I wanted to look at my TM programs, whatever it is, you can go in and hit those, and you hit apply here, and it'll automatically redraw your dashboards for you. And you can see I didn't have anything in those programs, so it drew it as 0. But you can see how it can come in here and do that. I'll show you a better one though when we go over here. Let's go over to a for-profit situation. This is a restaurant group called Maynard Franchise Holdings that we've got here, and I'm logged in again as a controller, Joanna Drake. Joanna can see across my whole operations. I've got 4 entities out there. I've got a couple Five Guys locations. I got a couple Popeyes locations spread across North Carolina and South Carolina. Okay. In this case, I got a P&L where I'm looking at P&L with all my locations across, and if I scroll to the right, I can see my totals. So you can see how powerful these reports are. But now let me do a drill down here, and you'll see something kind of neat. Is I can go in and say, let's say I just want to see those North Carolina operations, which includes 1 Popeye or 2 Popeyes and 1 Five Guys. I can go in and say, let's look at North Carolina and apply. And now this thing's going to redraw just for North Carolina. And I can see those 3 locations, the same thing. All my reports redrew just for those locations that are out there. Maybe I want to see just my Five Guys locations, and Bill Lumberg's in charge of those, so I can go in and just look at my Five Guys locations. And now I see here's my Five Guys. So here's my Five Guys, and I can see how Bill's doing, and Bill's got 782 sales. His sales are up. That's good. All right. Let's say I'm Bill Lumberg. I want to give Bill access to his information. I've got another tab open here where I'm logged in as Bill Lumberg. And Bill, if you look here, is responsible just for the two Five Guys locations. So Bill, here's my sales, same sales I saw before that Joanna was looking at, but now I can, it's to 782. But Bill also is looking at gross profit, and he's looking at labor hours, and Bill can say, wow, this is great. My sales are up, my gross profit's up, but I did it with less hours. So I was able to decrease my labor hours and still get my profitability up. So I really did a really good job. You can see here too that I can have essentially conditional statements in my financials. So Bill could look at this and say, hey, I got a couple items I'm slightly over budget. I got some green items I'm under budget, doing good. I got one item I'm way over budget. I want to know what that is. I can drill down right into it. Bill can drill right into it. I can drill down and see the transactions. I can drill into a transaction by clicking on that. I can see all my details here on my journal entry. I can drill right into my journal entry. And then I can actually then from here hit view and go all the way back to my source document. And I can see that this was a big expense for Party Boats R Us. Somebody rented a boat. They got booked to Bill. I can actually see the boat. I can see the attachments. I can go out there and look at all this information. Bill could do all of this right from his phone. So Bill has total control over his operation and what's going on in his operation. You can see what's happening, including his ability, if you got workflow set up, to approve payments and expenses. All right. So that, in a nutshell, is Intacct. Let me go back to my session here and we can kind of finish up. So I said I would talk primarily about Business Central and Intacct, but there are other cloud options out there. And in case you're curious about that, or maybe you've seen things, you've seen ads on TV about Oracle NetSuite or some of these other ones out there. Just wanted to mention them for a minute, just to tell you why we are recommending Sage Intacct and Business Central, okay? Because there are other solutions out there, and every solution, like we talked about, has different pros and cons. But the main one that I want to just mention here is NetSuite for a minute. And the reason I just want to talk about NetSuite and the pros and cons of NetSuite is because that one is the most popular system, or I shouldn't say most popular. They've been around the longest in the cloud marketplace. So they have a very large market share, and they do a lot of advertising. So you're going to see them everywhere. And I just want to, and so figured if you're curious, we just wanted to talk about that for a minute. So, because NetSuite is an option you could look at, okay? It is a true SaaS product, just like Intacct, so users are always current. It has very large market share, and it's got a lot of really nice functionality. It's got some things you don't have, like in Intacct. So it has CRM. It's got e-commerce. You've got the same thing on Business Central. Business Central doesn't have those built in, but what Microsoft did is they allow you to, they have it as part of their suite. So you have Microsoft CRM, or what they call 365 sales or customer engagement, as part of their suite that you can integrate with, right? So they've tackled that way. Oracle's taken a different approach and said, we're just going to provide it all in one bundle in our suite. Okay, so that's, that can be good, that can be bad. The con side of it is, by doing this, they're trying to be all things to everybody, and their user satisfaction ratings, if you look out there, are not very good compared to Intacct. They're not nearly as good as Intacct out there. So that's a downside of it. And the other thing is, you're looking at a best of suite versus best in class. So with Intacct and Business Central, it's a best in class. These companies are focused on what they do and trying to be the best they can in that area, financial accounting and inventory control. And instead of trying to be all things to all people, which is the best of suite approach. So best in class, the beauty of cloud is you can have, through the APIs, I can easily integrate. So if I have a best in class payroll HR solution, I can integrate it with my ERP very easily with Intacct or Business Central, right? So that's a difference out here in how you do it. The other thing is Oracle is tending to focus more on the higher end of the mid-market. And so the smaller companies don't get the attention. Whereas you're not going to find that with Microsoft or with Sage. They are totally focused on the low to mid-sized entities in the mid-market companies. So if you go, the companies that are growing QuickBooks, this is the solutions. The solutions for them are the Intacct and the Business Centrals. And then finally, Oracle has very high subscription fees. They'll tend to discount at first to try to get you in the door, but then they have very high subscription fees down the road once those discounts expire. And so we've seen a lot of unhappy users down the road. We haven't seen that with Intacct or Business Central so far, especially with Intacct. We've got a lot of clients have been in Intacct for quite a while, and they all love it. So to summarize this webinar here, the time to move to the cloud is now more than ever. If you haven't already done it, you need to do it. You have three good options. If you're on GP now, you could just run GP in the cloud, or you can move to a Sage Intacct or a Business Central. And we'd be happy to talk to you further about any of those, particularly if you're looking to make the move to another ERP. And also, if you're looking at any other solutions that are out there, we'd be happy to talk about the different pros and cons of those. I just brought up Netsuite because it's the most popular one. And then, but if you have any questions, please feel free to contact either me or Tim Bograkis on our team, and we would be happy to talk to you about that. Thank you for attending, and we appreciate the opportunity to serve you guys. And I wish we speaking on behalf of all of Maynard, we hope everybody stays safe and healthy during these difficult times. Take care. Bye.